All right, so today we are really diving into something I think a lot of people hear about but don't fully get, you know, codependency in relationships with narcissists.
Right.
And you sent over some really fascinating research on this, so I'm ready to kind of unpack all of this with you. Like why these relationships happen in the first place,
Right.
why they're so hard to get out of, and the role that, like, trauma plays in all of this.
It's definitely a dynamic, I think, that's often met with a lot of judgment, confusion.
Oh, 100%. Like, why don't they just leave?
Yeah, why are they putting up with this?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
your research, I think it does a good job of really diving into
Yeah.
the deeper,
Yes.
often hidden forces at play.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is so fascinating and that you pointed out is how victims of narcissistic abuse can become so reliant
Yes.
on the abuser, right, for validation.
It's so weird.
Even when it's so clear, like, this is toxic, this is bad for me.
It feels counterintuitive.
It is.
It really is.
It is counterintuitive and heartbreaking, frankly. And it's, this dependency often stems from just like a perfect storm of factors,
Okay.
many rooted in the victim's past.
So it's not just about this person's, like, this new person they've met and they happen to be narcissists. It's like there's stuff already there.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's unpack that a little bit.
Mhm.
What are some of those things, those ingredients in this perfect storm that really contribute to this dependence?
So picture this, okay? Imagine growing up and love and attention are like winning the lottery. Like, you never know.
It's so unpredictable.
Completely unpredictable over time, right? Like, if that's your experience over and over again, it can really wire someone to constantly seek that validation from other people.
Right.
Because their own sense of self-worth is like, well, I don't know, am I worthy? Am I good enough?
They're looking outside of themselves
Exactly.
for that. Okay.
Exactly. And this is where I think the narcissist often enters the picture, right? Because they oftentimes, without even realizing it, they create an environment that feels chaotic, unpredictable,
Oh, interesting.
unconsciously mirroring those early experiences.
So there's this, like,
Yeah.
pull
Sure.
towards what they already know, even if it's unhealthy. Because it feels, on some level, maybe safer than the unknown.
Yes. And to compound that, to make it even stickier,
Yeah.
is that the narcissist then layers on this masterful use of what we call intermittent reinforcement.
Okay. Say more about that. That sounds very clinical.
It is. But think of, like, those experiments with rats and the lever?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Okay. So the rat learns, like, oh, if I push this lever, I get a treat.
Right.
But sometimes they get a treat, sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
And so it's that unpredictability that keeps them hooked.
Oh, wow.
Right. They're constantly pressing the lever, hoping for the reward. And it's the same thing, right?
Right.
With a narcissist, it's like, well, maybe this time.
Like, it's like a constant maybe this time.
Exactly. Maybe this time they'll finally, be who I need them to be. Maybe this time I'll get that love, that validation.
So it's like a constant cycle of hope and disappointment.
Yes.
And never knowing what to expect.
Exactly. And so they become the victim, I should say, right? Become so hooked on those crumbs.
On the crumbs.
Praise of affection.
Yeah.
Working harder and harder to please the narcissist to get it.
Wow.
And it becomes this really powerful cycle.
Especially because it sounds like, it's almost like
Yeah.
bringing them back to those early experiences of, like, I have to do this to get love. I have to, like...
Exactly, you said it. People pleasing.
Yeah.
Which is, to add another layer of complexity here.
Right.
This is where we see the internal struggle.
Oh, no. More layers.
I know.
Of course.
Between what the research is calling these internalized narcissistic traits and people pleasing.
Okay. Okay, so first of all, can we just define those two things?
Yeah.
Because I think that's a mouthful, and I want to make sure people really understand what those two things are.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with internalized narcissistic traits.
Okay.
And essentially, this is, over time, the victim, as a defense mechanism almost, may start to adopt some of the narcissist's traits themselves.
Oh, wow.
So they might become more defensive.
Okay.
More competitive, even manipulative, right?
It's like they're mirroring.
Exactly.
Mirroring their abuser.
It's not that they are a narcissist.
Right, right.
It's an unconscious attempt to protect themselves.
To like, survive this, basically.
Exactly. To regain some sense of control in a situation where they feel powerless.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
But then at the same time,
At the same time,
they're also dealing with this people-pleasing thing.
exactly.
Like, which one is it?
Exactly. And that's the thing is it's this constant push and pull, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the people-pleasing comes from, again, that deep-seated desire to avoid conflict,
Right.
keep the peace, right? Maybe they'll finally love me if I just do this.
If I'm just like super easygoing and I don't rock the boat.
Exactly. So they might constantly apologize. They might take the blame for things that aren't their fault. They silence their own needs,
Wow.
their own opinions, right? Just to kind of keep things calm.
So on one hand, they might be mirroring the narcissist's need for control, but on the other hand, they're shrinking themselves to avoid like further pain. It's heartbreaking.
It is. It is heartbreaking. And it's this constant, like I was saying, this push and pull that can create this really profound internal conflict.
Yeah.
Like this duality of identity that's so hard to untangle.
It sounds exhausting.
It is.
Just like imagine all of that going on in your head and your heart all the time and then trying to show up in the world.
Exactly. And you can imagine like trying to go to work, trying to, be a friend. It's like, who even are you at that point?
And then you layer on, you said earlier that a lot of this comes back to those early experiences.
Yeah.
Like how does someone's past, especially if they've been through trauma,
right?
how does that contribute to this whole dynamic?
So imagine, right? You're a child, you're growing up in a home where, let's say, a primary caregiver has some of these traits maybe even meets full criteria for narcissistic personality disorder.
Yeah.
Their entire sense of safety and security is dependent on someone else's mood, someone else's behavior.
So they learn from a very young age to kind of be hypervigilant.
Yes.
Like, what are the cues?
Yes.
What's going to happen next?
Constantly trying to read the room.
Right.
And adjust their behavior to avoid, triggering a negative reaction.
Exactly. And that pattern, right, of people-pleasing, of I need to kind of be small to be safe.
Right.
That hypervigilance becomes this deeply ingrained, like, survival strategy.
It makes sense.
It does. And it's how they learn to navigate relationships.
Yeah. Even if it was at the expense of their own needs and their own well-being.
Wow. Yeah. So we're really talking about how these really early experiences, especially if trauma is involved, can almost like set the stage for codependency in these relationships with narcissists. Yeah. So it's not just like, oh, I met this person who has these traits. It's like there's already this blueprint almost that's already there.
Exactly. And I think what's even more concerning sometimes is thinking about the long-term impact of this, right? It's not just like the immediate stress and anxiety, but how these patterns can really impact someone's life on like a fundamental level.
Yeah. So let's talk about those long-term effects. Like, what are some of the things that, someone who's been in this type of relationship, maybe even multiple relationships with these same dynamics, like what are they left with?
Yeah. So one of the, I think, most profound impacts is on their sense of self.
Okay.
Right? We were talking about this inner conflict, this duality. And I think over time that can become even more deeply ingrained, right? Yeah. They might start to really question their own perceptions, their judgment, their ability to make good decisions.
Oh, wow.
They might even start to doubt their own sanity.
Yeah, because they're being fed this distorted reality constantly.
Exactly. And gaslighting, which, just for folks who are listening who maybe haven't heard that term, that's basically that manipulation where you're distorting someone's reality.
Right, to make them question their own sanity.
Exactly. And that's unfortunately really common in these relationships. And you can imagine, like, over time, it really chips away at someone's confidence and it makes it so hard for them to trust their own instincts.
It's like their internal compass gets completely like broken.
Exactly. And you can imagine, all of that takes a toll, right? Mentally, emotionally, we're talking chronic anxiety, depression, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, even physical health problems.
Oh, wow.
Because of this prolonged stress.
So it's not just like emotional and mental. It's like their body is like mirroring this chaos.
100%. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Their nervous system is like, fight or flight.
Right.
Rubber bands stretch to its limit and never able to like relax.
Wow.
So insomnia, digestive issues, weakened immune system.
Yeah.
The list goes on and on.
It's like their body is a perfect reflection of what's happening in this relationship.
Exactly.
And as if that wasn't enough, like what else?
Right. And unfortunately, it often spills over into other areas of their lives.
Of course.
Like work, friendships, future relationships even,
Right, because now their picker is...
Totally.
Yeah.
They might isolate themselves from loved ones because they're, embarrassed, they're ashamed.
Right.
They struggle to set healthy boundaries because they've been told over and over again that their boundaries are wrong.
Right, and they don't trust themselves. So they're not going to trust other people either.
Exactly. So it really, makes you realize, like, that need for healing, for breaking these patterns is urgent.
Yes.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal. So how does someone begin to heal from this? Like, how do they even start to break free from something that is so deeply ingrained?
So, it's a journey, right?
Yeah.
And everyone's journey is going to be different. But there are some common threads I see clinically that I think can be helpful.
Okay, good.
And it often starts with awareness.
Okay.
Right. It's that aha moment where they start to see the patterns, understand, what narcissistic abuse is.
Right.
Maybe they hear the term codependency for the first time and it's like...
And it clicks.
It clicks and they're like, oh my gosh, that's what's been happening.
That's me.
And that in and of itself can be so validating because it's like, oh, okay, it's not just me. There's a name for this. Other people experience this.
It's not me. It's not in my head. This is a real thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I think with that awareness comes choice, right?
Okay.
Because they start to realize, like, oh, I have the power to maybe choose something different for myself.
I love that.
Right. Like, I don't have to stay stuck in this.
Right.
I can actually make a different choice.
And that might look like therapy.
Often, yes.
Yeah.
Therapy, especially with someone who understands trauma, understands narcissistic abuse, can be so, so valuable.
Like they specialize in it.
Exactly, because it gives you that safe space to really explore those deep-seated beliefs, process the trauma, develop those healthier coping skills.
It's huge. So it's like understanding that getting help is not weak. It's actually
opposite.
Incredibly powerful.
100%. Yeah.
To say, like, I'm not okay and I need support. Love that.
Yeah, it's about really prioritizing your healing, your well-being.
Yes.
Which you deserve.
100%. What else? So let's say someone's listening and they're like, okay, therapy, I get that. What else can I be doing to really support this journey of healing as I'm kind of breaking free from this?
I think building a really strong support system is huge.
Okay.
Right? Like surrounding yourself with people who are genuinely caring, understanding, and validate your experience.
So it's like rebuilding that trust.
Yes.
Not only in themselves, but with other people again.
Exactly.
Because it's been so damaged.
It's been shattered, often, yeah.
Yeah, oh my gosh, it's so true.
Yeah, so it's like really seeking out those healthy, secure attachments that maybe they were lacking.
Right, they didn't get that in the beginning. So sad.
Yeah. So whether that's, supportive friends, family members, support groups even, it's about realizing, like, you don't have to go through this alone.
It's that sense of belonging again.
Yes.
Like, you are worthy of love and support.
Yes.
Exactly as you are.
Exactly.
It's like they're rebuilding their whole world from the ground up.
Yes.
But this time they have, like, better tools.
Better foundation.
A better foundation, yeah.
Yeah, it's that...
It's so beautiful.
It is.
Think about it that way.
It is.
Because I think sometimes it can feel so overwhelming. Like, how do I even begin to come back from this?
Yeah, and I was, what I say to folks, too, is, healing, it's not linear, right? It takes time.
Right.
But I think with each, step towards awareness, each act of self-compassion, each connection with someone who's supportive and safe, it's like they're moving closer and closer to that place of wholeness.
That's so true. Oh, my gosh. You're making me think about that quote. The wound is the place where the light enters you.
Oh.
It's like, it's in those moments where we feel the most broken that we often find, like, our greatest strength.
And I think it speaks to the transformative power of healing, right? It's not about, like, erasing the past or pretending it didn't happen, but how can we kind of integrate that into a more, like, whole and empowered sense of self?
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we kind of start to wrap up this deep dive, if you could give our listener, like, just one thing to really carry with them as they're listening to this and they're, maybe resonating with what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
What's that one pearl of wisdom you would want them to leave with?
More than anything, be kind to yourself. right? Like, healing from this stuff, it takes so much courage.
Yeah.
It takes commitment.
It does.
Right. And it's not about, getting it right all the time.
Yeah.
It's about showing up for yourself.
Yeah.
Even when it's really hard.
Even when you don't want to.
Even when you stumble, right? Because we're human and we're going to...
Of course we are, yeah.
We're going to mess up. We're going to, fall down. But it's about, like, can we just be kind to ourselves through that process?
What a good reminder. Be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Because you deserve it. You deserve to heal. You deserve to love and be loved.
Yes.
You deserve to be in relationships that honor and cherish you.
Beautifully said, yeah.
This has been such a great conversation. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing your wisdom with us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
And to our listener, if anything resonated with you today, know that you are not alone. Please reach out for support. Whether that's a friend, a family member, a therapist, we're going to include some resources for you in our show notes as well. Be kind to yourself, keep exploring, and remember, healing is possible. We'll see you next time.